Content warning. The content of this podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical or psychological advice. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any professional organizations. If you or someone you know is experiencing mental health issues or a crisis, please seek help from a qualified mental health professional or contact a crisis support service by dialing 988. Always consult with the licensed therapist or counselor for personalized support and guidance.
Welcome to Queer in Here, Let's Talk Mental Health, and I'm Alicia Nolan. My pronouns are she, her, 3-time Amazon bestselling author and owner of Choose to Live. This podcast is dedicated to LGBTQ+ mental wellness. A diverse selection of mental health professionals and passionate storytellers will come together to create a safe and supportive space for everyone. Each episode features insightful conversations that explore the unique challenges faced by the LGBTQ+ community, weaving in personal narratives that resonate deeply with experiences of identity, acceptance, and resilience. This podcast will not only provide valuable tools for coping and healing, but it will also foster a sense of belonging, reminding followers that they are not alone in their journeys, and intends to inspire hope, spark dialogue, and promote mental wellness for everyone. Hi, Stephanie, and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited.
Would you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Yes. So my name is Stephanie. My pronouns are she, her. I am I've actually had the most wonderful and exciting life, and I've gotten to travel. I have lived, worked, and traveled in 14 different countries, but I am currently in the South. I was born in the South and I have returned to it. I was born in Tampa, Florida, and I currently live in a tiny town you have not heard of in South Carolina. I work by day. I am a massage therapist. I own Marasuna Massage and Yoga Center. And by/any other time, I am a writer editor. I like the term queer. I like that umbrella, but I think I most closely identify with. So when I grew up, okay, there were 3. It was gay, straight, or bi. That was it. And so I've always used bi, even though now, thank goodness, we've proliferated so many more terms because people do not fit in boxes. And I don't really know if that's where I fit anymore, but that's what we're going with. So yeah. I am a bisexual writer and editor, chilling in South Carolina.
South Carolina. Oh boy, that's fantastic. You have a tie to Florida though, correct? Okay. Yeah.
When I was a young person, I worked for Disney. I've had so many fun careers. I got to be a chocolatier. I worked for Disney. I was an autism therapist. I was an English teacher abroad. I did all the things. And I love Florida. I'm not proud of Florida, but it's still a place that most of my family still lives there. I kind of associate that with home, even though we're working on it. It's okay.
That's fair.
My passion project that we were here to talk about today is my queer youth literary journal, Let's Say Gay. And in case our title isn't clear enough, we're from Florida.
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about that journal because one, the concept of it is incredible and so very needed right now. And I know you started it in 2023.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are a literary journal that works to create safe spaces for queer identifying teens. Our submissions, which are always free, are for 13 to 18-year-olds, and we take really everything but photography because I don't know how to judge it. I'm like, oh, there's no red eye in that photo. It's probably really good. We take poetry, short stories, their art, and so this all started. This is kind of a silly story because hindsight is 2020, right? Like at the time, this seemed like such a huge issue. I was like, kids need safe spaces. Now there's no safe spaces for anybody. But in 2023, and this idea just popped into my head, fully formed, and has haunted me for 2 years. I was in the bath, just having this rage bathtub. I was like, Ron DeSantis, this all started with Florida House Bill 1557, the Parental Rights in Education Act, more commonly known as Don't Say Gay. And the original bill was signed into law in 2022, and it prohibited the discussion of gender, sexual identity, or sexual orientation in Florida public schools from kindergarten to 3rd grade. Now, the argument for this bill was that it would create age-appropriate curriculum, but since safe sex and anal practices were not on the curriculum for kindergartners, it was just a gag order, right? Like the children, no one was allowed to discuss. They had to take down rainbow, all are welcome here signs. Queer educators could not talk about their partners, and queer children could not talk about their parents. And so it was very stigmatizing, and I was real mad. And then in 2022, the bill was then expanded. Or no, it was actually the beginning of 2023, I believe. I think it was January. It was expanded to include 4th grade through 12th grade. So basically, your entire public school education, you were not allowed to discuss your gay family, your gay thoughts, your gender identity, any of those things. And so obviously that was a hot mess. Now, I will say that we've had a small victory. In March of last year, 2024, there was a settlement reached with the state of Florida where it's not like a huge win, but at least now they were forced to define. There was a lot of really vague language in the bill, like age appropriate. Who decides what's age appropriate? So they were forced to say, okay, these are the regulations. And now they are allowed to discuss family and they're allowed to discuss gender as long as it is not part of the curriculum. But so that was a small win, but we had all that going on. That was a mess. And then on top of that, in 2023 was sort of the height, the original height of the culture was, it looks so small now. But in 2023, we were dealing with like the book bans, right? And I was totally worked up and furious about this because by 2023, so I like to share a few statistics for people who maybe don't have like a strong frame of reference for what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the book bans.
Yeah, please do.
And I do use, just for everybody, I use the American Library Association's data. So anyone who wants to call BS on me and check, always do. Fact check your podcast, guys. But you can go to their website and if you start with 2019, back when the world was normal, 2019, you have 246 attempts to censor books with a total 332 titles were challenged. In 2020, when the world was shut down and no one cared about anything, it was only 121 censored books and 277 challenges. In 2021, that number of attempted censored books goes to 602 with a total titled, such a tongue twister for me, challenge of 3,926. In 2022, it was 1,031 challenges with titles 6,863 different books. And then finally we get to 2023, which was 938 challenges and 9,021 books affected. It was like a 300, 400, 500% increase. It was unprecedented, this assault on books. So here I am, getting back to my angry bathtub. And I was like, there are no safe space for queer children. So I grew up in Florida and I really had a wonderful childhood. My parents were wonderful, but I was Catholic and I was homeschooled before the internet. So we had a pretty small, assortment of stories. Like I couldn't really access stories about people like me. So I do have some passing privilege as being bi. I could just date boys and just not make a big deal of it. Be like, yep, I don't like girls, not me. Yeah. So that was very cool. But there's a lot of people who don't have that experience. And my parents were Catholic, but like moderate. They were real normal people. I was not in a fundamental home. When you are isolated, essentially, and your entire education, you're not allowed to talk about who you are or who your family is. There's this really bizarre, okay, I'm getting derailed, but my most recent meltdown, I've always been really good about like giving people the benefit of the doubt and staying positive. And when the book ban hoax started, I was like, they're gaslighting me. Like there's 9,000 books. This is not a hoax. Yeah. So the argument, the pushback from certain people is that these books aren't really banned. They're still accessible. You can still buy the books. It's not like they're illegal. But that argument comes from such a place of privilege to assume that certain families can just buy every single book that their kid needs, or that they can drive to other libraries, or even that child has a parent who will get them a library card. So from where we're sitting, you've got no safe space at school. You cannot access stories about people like you. You cannot talk about your life. You cannot talk about people like you. And I got so frustrated by how we've got this whole generation of young people that we're silencing. And all of a sudden, into my head pops. Even the title, it was like, this is not usually how my brain works. Normally I start with I'm writing a short story about rabbits. And I end up with a novel that's like a horror novel. I never start and end at the same place, but it was like fully formed. This is going to be the journal. This is the ages we were going to take. I even had like the visual that's still on our website of a young person ripping duct tape off their mouth. I was like, this is a terrible idea. I don't know how to run a literary journal. I don't want to do it. So I ignored it and but it was like inevitable. I just kept coming back to it. And at that time, I was a graduate student at Winthrop University, which is the most wonderful school full of the most supportive people. And we had to do a literary citizenship project, which was basically just our teacher saying, give something back to the community before you graduate. Most people donated books. I had a really cool friend who was donating literary books to prisons or write a letter to an author. And I was like, what if I did a literary journal? And my teacher was like, I mean, you can, but that sounds, so I did. I don't know. And so then after school, so we had book one, and I had the most wonderful friend help me. She's our artist. She was great. And then we all graduated and we moved on. And I reached this point where I said, okay, pat yourself on the back. It was great. You can either let it go and move on, because at this point I'd lost my whole staff and no publisher would work with us and we were having a lot of problems. Or you could double down like a crazy person. And I'm sure you know where the story's going. Here I am almost 3 years later. This lit journal has been haunting me for years, but I love it so much and I love what we do. And we are now accepting submissions for book 3. We got to book 3. I'm so happy. 13 to 18-year-olds until June 1st. I just wanted to kind of give a space, not just for queer voices and to share queer narratives, because obviously as a writer, I'm like a little biased and I happen to think that stories are very important and words matter and representation matters.
Yes.
But even if you can't get into the book, if you're like, well, I'm not an artist, you can read it and you can know that you're not alone and that there are people like you. Our website they're always free online, the PDF and the archives. We only did the book. So originally I didn't want a paywall. I was like, it's all going to be digital. But when kids get selected in the book, they really wanted a copy. And so now we make copies and they all get a free copy. Total, I think we've printed 200 of each volume, and we've put 50 in free libraries around that. We put those little library books, and we've given away about 100 to teachers. So we're just like, put them in your classroom, just like let children get their hands on them so that they just don't feel alone. And that's actually really why I wanted to be on your podcast. When I would listen and you have that intro that talks about how important it is for us all to share our stories and to know that we aren't even close to alone. We think we are. We live isolated, but so many people have the same problems you've had. They're going through the same journey you've had, especially like being a teenager. Like that isn't hard enough. Like straight kids, it also sucks to be a teenager in high school. Like, leave these poor kids alone and
throw in the queer part, and it's a different level.
Let them have community. Yeah. Well, that's the journal.
Yeah. Gosh, storytelling is so important. Just being able to connect with other people that are familiar, even just a little bit, or just can relate. They may not even be going through the exact same thing, but just being able to relate to each other that might be struggling with similar issues. There's so much comfort in that,
Huge amount.
I do vendor events with my brand and for suicide prevention, and just people wanting to share their story for that moment. There's so much connection and power in that very moment. It's just so hard to describe. Now you put it in a journal like what you're doing, from teens that are arguably taking the brunt of this current administration, our queer youth, trans youth, and finding a safe space to share what they're going through is so hard to find. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thank you for doing what you're doing, because there's so much power in it. And these are projects like this are what's going to make a difference for the queer community and for our queer youth.
Well, I think you hit it on the head with saying like they're the ones who have, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't all have a fun time with the current administration, but it's so easy to feel powerless at that age. To be like, man, I am 13. What am I supposed to do? I can't choose where to drive. I can't choose what to do. And knowing that the empowerment they feel to be like, yeah, well, my poem is published and everyone knows how I feel about this. And because we just did an event, I think 2 weeks ago at the Richland County Library in Columbia. It was amazing. It was the Read Freely event. It was this library hosting like an anti-censorship read banned books thing. And there were so many people there. And it was so much more than I thought. It was this huge outpouring. And it really lifted me up because it's such a nice reminder that you are not alone. Not just, I hate the like evil they out there, but that's how they want us to feel. They want you to feel like what bullies want are powerless and compliant people. Yep. They want you to be like, well, I can't change it.
Yep.
But we can. And we are down, but we are not out. The LGBT community, listen, do you think this is the first time that our community has been punched in the face and then flung into the desert? Like this is old school for queers. We know how to handle some fisticuffs, all right? We're gonna bounce back. But we have to give that fighting spirit and teach this generation instead of telling them, don't talk about your gay mom. Ooh, we don't talk about that. Yeah. That's weird.
It's the small wins that we need to lean into right now, even if it's just connecting with your community. You know, that's a small win. Queer joy, you know, these 13 to 18-year-olds that are now published authors technically in your journal. The joy that they get from that is, I don't even know how to describe it. I want to say the word powerful again, but I think I've already said it like 5 times, but it's true.
Yeah, it's what I like about it too is that, I mean, obviously I like everything about the journal. It's taking over my life. But I love that it is, because it's online, it's open to children everywhere. And I think that's something. So in book 2, we only publish the children. Obviously, we look at their IDs and verify their ages, but we only publish their first name and their location. And we have in Ireland, in Australia, and in India in book 2, which I think if you're a young kid in rural Florida where this started, going, oh my God, there are gay people all around the world. It's like, yeah, obviously. I mean, but as silly as that sounds to us adults, I can remember thinking I was like the only 11-year-old ever. I was like, well, I guess it's me. And unfortunately for my very loving parents, I feel like it went the opposite direction. When you grow up Catholic, you're basically told you're going to hell for everything, right? Like everything. And so at some point I remember being like, well, I mean, if I'm going to hell anyway, I might as well be gay. Like, I just kind of let go of that.
It didn't scare you?
Well, it just, it was defeat, really. I was like, oh, if I think a lustful thought, that's a sin. If I act on it, or if I don't, no matter what I do, it's a sin. And so I just kind of gave up. But for many, many children trapped in that, like, I have so little religious trauma compared to many people who weren't able to just kind of buck that thinking, that not that I ever want to criticize. I really think that faith can be such a comfort to people. And I want that to be great for them, but it really isn't very often.
Yeah. It's so complicated because religion, oh boy, religion. I didn't grow up religious at all, but I don't fault people who are. I get it. Sometimes people lean into religion for one reason or another, whatever they're going through their life. It may help them. It's when people use it to harm others that I'm like, yeah, no.
That was kind of where I dug in with the Moms for Liberty group, that whole nonsense. So they're kind of, so I also work with the library in my town, and like, I'm a big library fan, and they are just the headache of every librarian in the world. And it's not that I cannot see their point of view. I really do understand how you want to say, well, this book is inappropriate for my child. That's cool. Problem is that you're trying to say this book is inappropriate for everyone's child because you can't make those decisions for everybody else. Like, you telling me that I can't be gay because your God doesn't allow it is like me telling you can't have cake because I'm on a diet. It's like, that's not really how it works. I totally respect you want to give your child this very specific upbringing, but like, don't push it on my kid. I don't want my kid learning that stuff.
Yeah, and that's something that's so hard. Like, yeah, if you think it's inappropriate, then don't let your kid read it. That's cool. Like, go ahead. But yeah, deciding for everybody else what other people's kids can and cannot read, or like what kids can go to a family-friendly drag show, like, just shelter your own kids from the real world of, or just being a human being to others. I don't know.
Which I have to tell you is also not going to make a difference because I was pretty sheltered. I think it's always so strange to me, not to get on silly talking points, because I don't think that the conversation is served. The conversation our country is having is not really served by super binary thinking, like all Republicans are Nazis. That's not where we want to go with that. But it is peculiar to me how much of this is focused on protecting children. Like that's a very specific verbiage that they're using, like the grooming and the accusations that exposing children to things will make them trans or make them gay, when I'm like, I was exposed to nothing but heterosexual material and it did not make me straight. So I don't know why the logic is reversed there, because I promise you that if my parents could have willed me straight, I'd be straight.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece where I can't stop trying to think like them because I just can't do it. I can't do it. Like, I really try. I'm like, okay, let me sit with this for a minute and try to figure out where they're coming from. But I can never get through that point, because exactly, there's no evidence showing that if you even show the straightest kid a bunch of gay books and stuff, that they're going to become gay. There's no evidence out there at all suggesting any of that. So I don't know where they get their stuff.
Well, it's the same. It's almost like, okay, let's be a little vague. Say the current administration, they're just very, very good. We are up against a group of people who are well-funded, extremely well-organized, and they know what they're doing. One of the things that the Trump administration is, they are propaganda experts. They use very heated rhetoric. They use very specific propaganda, and they appeal to, like, we have all these crazy things out there that they, like Project 2025, the 7 Mountain Mandate, all of these things that they have been trying for years and culminating to infiltrate society. And it starts with really basic American principles of like loving like this wholesome image of a family that they have somehow convinced a huge group of people that transgender existence is a threat to. And it's as laughable as it sounds from this side. If you start at the beginning and you see how they've been chiseling away at people's sanity, and you're like, wow, like, I think that it's like they have gaslit us on a national scale. And that's pretty impressive, like how far the spread reaches. I did like a private experience, because again, I, like you, I really try to put myself in the like conservative think tank shoes, because that's my family. I mean, my mother, who is the most amazing human being alive, as far from a fascist as you can imagine, still votes red. And I'm like, Mom, I don't understand. They don't align with any of your principles. And so I try to like get into there to understand and to show compassion, because these are our family. Okay. But what I find overwhelmingly is that I think, this is my opinion, I think it's not just coming from a place of hate, but ignorance. I feel like the left is really much more in the know to what the right is doing than most of their supporters. I did this little baby experiment when it was like October, it was right before November, and I knew I had 22 people. Now that's a very small sample size, okay? But I had 22 people who I knew were voting for Trump. They were either clients or family members or acquaintances on Facebook. And I would ask them in a very non-combative way, just to start a conversation. I'd be like, so what do you think of Project 2025? Where do you stand on that? Do you think that's too extreme, or do you think there's some value to it? Where are we coming from? Not one of them, because I thought all of them would be like, oh, that's nonsense. Don't pay attention. That's just, not one of them knew what I was talking about. Not one. Every single one went, oh, what's that? And I was like, no, JD Vance. It's this whole thing, like this and this. And I would tell them about it, and they'd go, you must have Googled that. And they didn't even believe, because it's so absurd that I think even the average Trump supporter thinks he's nuts if they really looked at it. Now, I'm not talking about Trumpers. I think that there's a difference between a Republican and a Trumper. Like, I do live in rural South Carolina. Every pickup truck here has got a Trump 2024 flag welded into the bed. Okay, like, there are Trumpers here. But then there are like normal people, like my grandparents, who they've just been Republican for 80 years, so they don't switch. And I feel like they're all in for a shock, because I'm like, guys, they're crazy. Like, you guys see they're crazy, right? But they're just not as informed, I think, because if you just stay in your window, you're like, oh, I went to Aldi today. I came home.
Yep.
That was it.
And you definitely nailed it. And that's kind of the trend that's happening right now. In fact, I did a little experiment the other day where I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go to the Fox News Facebook page and just see
Give it a look.
like what they're seeing. There's really not much on there. It's a lot of random stories that don't really matter right now. And I'm like, well, I'm not shocked that that side, Republicans, conservatives, have no clue of all of these things that are taking place that the administration is doing. Now, you follow people like Heather Cox Richardson and Alt National Park Service, or scan through Reddit federal employee government conversations and stuff, and you can get a clear picture of what is actually taking place. But they'll deny it. They'll deny it. They won't believe it.
To the point that sometimes you start to doubt. You're like, because it is so crazy. You're like, there's no way. There's no way. Like my girlfriend, we all have to walk that very delicate line. One of the best things we can do right now is stay informed, but it's hard, right? Because you're on your phone. You're like, I got to put this down. And my girlfriend isn't the best at it. And sometimes she'll just be like screaming, shaking her phone. And when she told me, she's like, that's it. It's official. Trump has dismantled the Department of Education. I was like, honey, fact check that. Like, there's no way. Like, nah, that didn't it. There's no way. So I pulled my phone. I'm like, oh, let me Google this. And I was like, Jesus Christ, he dismantled the Department of Education.
Yes. I know.
And like, it's a lot, but it's true, unfortunately.
Yes. And staying in the know is difficult. I think I talk about it every podcast is staying in the know. There's got to be a solid balance. I can't express it enough. A balance of being in the know and taking care of yourself.
And that part, it's very important. My late father, who was like my best friend, like I just no idea how much I love my dad. He used to always tell me that the best revenge is being happy. He would say all the time, like, you want to know what'll really piss him? Just piss him off. He's like, you want to know what'll piss him off? Be successful. Be happy. Like, do you want to know what like radical homophobes don't want to see? Happy, thriving gay people living the life they don't think we deserve. That, like being married, having community, coming together. What the evil they want is for us to be alone and isolated and compliant and scared. And we don't have to be. It is a scary time, but let me get a little bit like, okay, I don't know if you're familiar with my dad, again, dad who I loved was a history major, loved history. And he used to talk a lot about the 80-year history cycle. I don't know if you've heard of it. It'll take me a second. I won't misquote it because I hate when people just go, I don't remember the number. Strauss and Howe, the Strauss and Howe generational theory. And it proposed that every 80 years, about every 4 turnings, which were usually 20 years, history will repeat itself. Just because enough generations have passed that we lose whatever original trauma.
Got it.
So a lot of people were like, Jesus Christ, Trump is the new Hitler. It's been 80 years. Like, history has repeated itself. And if you look at some of the parallels, the economics, the things that have happened, it's pretty close. But let me tell you what else happened 80 years ago. This year in January was the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. We beat the Nazis 80 years ago. We beat them then, and we are gonna beat them now.
Yes.
We have a fight ahead of us. I mean, I'm not saying it's like, everything's going to be great, but I'm not afraid. I mean, they're just bullies. Look, come on, Proud Boys. Look, they're bullies. They're bullies with humongous biceps and a lot of guns. And I'll agree that small brains and big muscles and big guns are a small combination. Yes. There are a lot of people who are not I have a privilege of safety right now that some people don't have. Some people are not in safe places, and I respect that. But I also want to say to anyone listening who's like, yeah, I want to do something. Non-compliance, like it takes so many forms. You don't have to go to rallies for 6 hours. If that's not your thing, you can write letters. You can join your school board. You can boycott if that's something you can do. There's a lot of ways that we can resist, and they don't all have to be violent. It's not everybody is into picking a fight with beef heads.
No. And queer joy is resilience. I have to remind everybody, queer joy, because you're absolutely right. They want us to be compliant and live how they think life should be lived, which is a very small outlook on life.
It's a very specific. And so, okay, I do not have a PhD in political science. I am not a politician. I think it's very presumptuous for a 35-year-old cat lady to say, what's wrong with America? But if you wanted my opinion, what's wrong with America, quote unquote, right now is that really everybody has a very different idea of what making America great again looks like. I mean, we are an amazing, I actually love my country. You can't tell from how much time I spend bitching about it, but like, I love America. And again, I had that really unique opportunity. I've lived about 4 years abroad. So I got to experience America from the inside and from the outside. I got to kind of see different ways of life. But what's really important to remember is that when you compare us to other countries who have found answers to some of these questions, we are very different. We are huge, both in landmass and in population. And we are so diverse. And there are so many religions and so many things that it's hard for us to agree on what making America great would even mean. Now, to the people currently in charge of making America great, that means something really specific. It means a very specific color. It means one of two genders. It means a very specific religion. It means a very specific lifestyle. You should have 4 kids. They're pretty specific of what a happy American looks like. To me, there's more to running a country than GDP. I happen to think we should consider education, the happiness index, the fact that many of our aged and devoted American citizens cannot afford their medicine. I have like a personal umbrage with the care of the old. Like, we do not take care of our elderly like they do in other countries. One of my favorite things. So Finland is awesome. One of my best friends is Finnish. I've been to Finland. It's wonderful. They actually have a buddy program where they hook up a kindergarten to like middle school child with a elderly person, just to be buddies. 3 times a week, they go and hang out.
Oh my gosh.
Because they consider loneliness to be like a diagnosable medical problem.
Yeah.
They don't like to see people alone.
And if you haven't seen like the documentary about blue zones, it's about sanitarians and people who live past 100, and there's certain
pockets.
All
have community.
Yes, it's community is the top
and purpose
one. Yes, community and purpose, and people actually taking care of the elderly. Like, like somebody's family's all gone, other families take them in. It seems like a very simple concept. Well, it's a very simple and easy concept for other countries for some reason, but not here. It feels like we do not take care of our elderly. We are not very, well, I don't want to say community based. We do have community.
But it's not really built into, it's something that people tend to have to make themselves. It's not like built into our society the way that I would imagine.
You kind of have to create it or find it or, through connection and stuff.
If you do not fit into the cookie cutter box, if you're different, if you're gender nonconforming, if you're queer, it's like there's no community for you. Now, some people, again, going back to church could be a good thing. Some people find great community in their faith, but that kind of has a dark side too, we all know. And it's.
Yeah. Yes, our country is great too, depending on how you look at it. I love this country and the potential that there is. I served for 13 years. I'm a retired Army veteran. I was Special Forces. I did SEER school, which is like the POW camp training and stuff. And at the end of that, after you starve for 4 days, they raise the flag, and everybody, every man, woman who's in formation, when that flag is raised at the end of POW camp is in tears.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that.
Yes.
So powerful.
So now when I hear the national anthem and I see the flag, my body is angry. My body is furious. Yes. And I feel it in my body, and it takes me a while to come down from it because I am so just enraged and angry with the turn that this country has taken. At one time I was tearing up, so happy and like just relieved at the sound of the national anthem and the flag being raised. And the anger that I feel now is just, it's so disappointing. But I do still love this country, and I appreciate the community aspect of it, right? Like, I have found so many members of my community that I feel safe with, and I'm so grateful for that.
For me, my patriotism has turned into like almost like a weird, embarrassing uncle at like Thanksgiving, where you're like, you love your uncle. You have so many memories growing up and playing football with that guy, but then he opens his mouth and you're like, so now like when I first went abroad, I was teaching English and Korean. I was just like, America's great. And this was like 15 years ago. And I was really super American. And now when I go abroad, my friends are like, you're American. I'm like, Canadian. I'm Canadian. It's so embarrassing to have to admit that I'm like, yes, I'm American. And they're all like, this has happened to me 3 times now. I'll tell someone, oh, I'm American. And they're like, oh, but you're so nice. And I'm like, oh man, like, I swear we're not all jackasses. Like, I know that's what you think we are, but this is the most beautiful country. And it's so full of tenacity and ingenuity. There's so many great things about Americans. Like, I personally think I'm a bit of a tree hugger. We got a man on the moon with less technology. The computer processor that put a man on a moon was like the equivalent of Windows 95. But we did it out of spite because that's how bad we hated Russia. We were like, we are going to get a guy on the moon before you. And I'm like, we could absolutely come up with something brilliant to fix pollution if we could even agree that climate change is happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we could, when we are united, we are unbelievable. And that's why it is a little discouraging, I'll grant you, that the new battle with Nazis is on our shore. You know, it's like we're fighting each other. That kind of sucks, but okay.
I guess. Okay. Let's go back to the journal.
Yeah, I've done a terrible job with that. I'm supposed to be rubbing my journal, and I'm
No.
like, Nazis.
This is, I mean, you got to get it out and people need to hear it. Let's be real. But we're going to go back to the journal because I would love to hear a couple of those stories from the journal, and allow the listeners to hear some of these stories. And I really hope that everybody who hears this podcast promotes and lets the young generation know that there is a safe space to go to if you want to share your story. And I'm very much looking forward to, I'm going to put you on my website and I'm going to do so many social media, like, oh my gosh, to give you just a larger audience. So anyways, I would love to hear a couple of the stories that you have selected.
Well, I am really happy to share because I believe that society advances one funeral at a time. And these young people, I'm like, y'all are the ones who are going to save the world. We're messing it up for you. And I do hope that if they're listening, that you understand that you are the future and your voice does matter. And I'm really honored by these children who chose to let me amplify their voice. The first one I'm going to read is from our first issue, which is Rainbow Ink. Very lovely.
Yes.
And it is by, all of these are being read with permission by their contributor. This is being read. Let's see here. I'm going to have to send you to, so this is by Jessie, who was 18 and lived in New Jersey. And it's called Things You Cannot Become Alone. This is where I end and you begin. Starless nights in the shape of pennies, handfuls that I fasten away into this wretched singularity, rendered into sinew. Here, feel it, here. This is my hand and my chest and my stomach, the coins I swallowed like lightless dusk and a memory of you, again. Copper consigned to turquoise, consigned to salt in the Hudson River. This is our eulogy. Tired, huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Something precious that our mothers tell us to kill because boys cannot be happy with each other ever. This is fate. Ancient triads of women and scarlet threads. Silver mountains in the duat. I am here, and we are sitting across from Anubis as he asks me if this is what you wanted. Does this feel right? Then he releases our hearts onto the scale, diseased little things, before I can speak at all. This is everything beautiful and everything terrible, crashing in and out of time like universes, like smallish souls and human beings, like string symphonies and puddles of rain. And I am the woman, and I am the thread, and I am Anubis, and I am gravity, weaving beautiful things into existence and then watching them die. This is where we surrender to want until it collapses into need. Breathe with me, just like this. This is where I end and you begin. And that was a poem by Jessie, who I'm going to read you on his bio. His pronouns are he, they. Jessie is an undergraduate at Emory University studying chemistry and theater. A non-binary and Chinese poet, they explore queer and POC spaces with writing and with music. Their work has been recognized at the New Jersey Teen Arts Festival throughout high school. Don't be scared to reach out at tirx.cs on Instagram. So give them a follow, give them a shout out. They are a very gifted writer.
Wow. I'm always envious of people who can write poetry,
Me too.
especially like that.
I consider myself like a decent writer, but like I never could do poetry. And it's so evocative. And at that age, okay, let me tell you what I was writing as a teenager. Cringy gay fan fiction. Like, I'm not kidding you. I was on fanfiction.com. I was not writing beautiful things.
Oh my gosh.
So, Jesse, like,
Yes.
super kudos if you're listening.
Absolutely, yes.
And I loved that one. That one spoke to me for this current time. So did this one from Volume 2, Louder. This is by Haven. Haven Beckman, pronouns she, her, is a 17-year-old writer from California. And this piece is called Fitting Room after Gregor Samsa. Wore a skirt for the first time. Started thinking about gender. Exaggerated masculine costumes like a garbage bag full of hand-me-downs. The inevitable coffee stains. Intimate ghostly fingerprints of a discarnate stranger's perfume. Trying on a few skirts in the fitting room, shedding the transitory skin which will become my nervous. When I emerged, I knew what Gregor had felt, the joy of scurrying all over sapien walls he didn't know contained him. For this violation of nature, Gregor was locked in a stranger's bedroom while his loved ones prayed for an exorcism of his monstrosity. I was lucky. My bedroom door was left mercifully unlocked. As the morning glow caressed my strange new form, feeling its new contours, I wiggled free of my infantile chrysalis and flexed my tender new appendages. I knew that despite the fragility of my unrecognizable shape, I could rely on my body to carry me into light. I flew out of the shell of my former self and felt the door close behind me. Gregor was found dead in his rotting cage. And that was by Haven Beckman, who is an aspiring writer and editor based in the San Francisco Bay Area and primarily writes poetry, creative nonfiction, and works of journalism. She's an alumna of the Yale Young Writers Workshop, a Villers Fellow, and serves as the feature section editor for the Athenian Pillar and has previously published her work in the Alcott, Carteret, Under the Madness, and Apprentice Writer magazines. Her favorite word is shenanigans, which her two fearsome cats are often up to. I love this piece because it relies heavily on the literary illusion of metamorphosis, which is like the only Franz Kafka story anyone has read. But I never really liked the original. And then when I read this, I was like, damn, girl, like that is beautiful to reimagine this story as a trans awakening. I was like, this is so much more interesting than a guy who wakes up as a bug. I don't know if you've read the original, but he just like goes, he wakes up, he's like, holy crap, I'm a bug. And this is just totally a beautiful literary. So those are two poems. We do have some short stories as well, but they're a little bit longer. And I really like those two pieces. Anyone who wants to read some more, it is always free online. PDF on our archives.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay. I feel like there's so many people right now, youth and adults, that can very much relate to those. So yes, thank you so much for sharing those. I want to ask what I normally ask. If there's one little nugget of advice that you could share with the LGBTQ plus community, what would that be?
I would say, I think it's just a repeat of what we've been saying this whole time, which is to survive out of spite. These people don't have the right to tear you down. Like, I believe that our identities are our own and that nobody has the right to tell me what my name is, what I want to wear. We're Americans, for God's sakes, right? Like, we're like a freedom country. And you're telling me I can't wear what I want to wear. I have this pin that I love. It's just this little angry flower growing out of a crack in the cement. And it says, survive out of spite. We don't have to be victims. I saw this little meme that has resonated with me. Everyone has seen it. It's like the big fish is attacking all the little fish and it says, don't panic. And then the next picture is all the little fish turning into a school of fish and chasing off the big fish. Organize. This is our time. We are in our documentary era. Thank you, Jane Fonda. And we need to find our community, buckle down, find your way of expressing, find your resistance, and do not let someone else, some asshole who thinks that some bright orange crazy person, don't let him take your joy. Okay, this is your country. This is not his country. It is, well, I suppose it's his country too. Fine. Okay, but he doesn't explicitly own it.
Yes.
And I would just say to the gay community, we're an amazing community. Okay, we are beautiful and we are rainbows and we are creative and we are all of the things that we shouldn't feel ashamed of. So just remember, no matter how dark it is right now, And it be bleak, as Batman will teach us. Darkest before the dawn. Batman is my personal hero. Find your personal hero. You know what I love about Batman? The reason he resonated with me when I was 9 was because he didn't have any superpowers at all. He was just a son of a bitch who gets up every time he's hit. Strength is not never falling. Strength is standing back up after you've been knocked over. So for you out there being bullied, feeling alone, you're not alone. We are here. This podcast is here. We are not mental health professionals. Like, listen to the people, but we're there to help and to listen. And there is a community, and you are not alone.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. I think everybody can connect with Batman right now. I think that's fantastic.
That's me revealing my nerd truth, but like Batman.
It makes sense. He was just a normal human being that was freaking passionate about something, kicking the villain's ass. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to kick the villain's ass.
Well, I remember being a kid and saying, Dad, when I figured out there were really millionaires, I was like, Dad, there are like millionaires and not one of these assholes is a superhero. And he was like, no, honey, I was like, none of them are using their money for good. And then I grew up and realized that the superheroes are usually like the millionaires are the bad guys. But you know what? This one millionaire decided to use his resources to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves.
Yep, absolutely. 1,000%. I love that so much.
That is my symbol.
Thank you for being on here today. Thank you for what you're doing for the queer community as a whole, but also for queer youth that need their voices heard, not just for others to hear, but others within the young queer community to not feel alone. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm so excited to amplify your project to others as much as I possibly can.
That's so kind.
And I hope the volumes never stop. And I hope it gets so busy you don't know what to do with it, okay?
Volume 3 is coming out. I'm excited. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really like your podcast. I was so excited when I got your email back. So
I appreciate
thank you for what you do. And also thank you for your service.
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry they now spit in the face of it, but I will always, I came from a military background. My dad was military, grew up on bases. So I've always, got that little bit of patriotism in me. You can't make me hate America. You can try, America, but I will always put my hand over my heart for the anthem.
Yes, and that's one thing that makes me laugh sometimes is we call them fake patriots that are running around like shitting on the American dream, if you will. And it's like, you're not a patriot. You're not even close to being a patriot. What do you do for your community, your country? Anyways.
It's this weird closed-minded, you see the bumper stickers that say like, America, love it or leave it. I'm like, but that's never been what made America. America, we were founded by a bunch of discontent people who said, I want to change something. And then they won somehow. Like we've always been really like what we're doing, civil distress. That's the most American thing you can do. So you go out there and disagree, queers. That's the most American thing you can do.
I love it.
Go throw tea in a harbor somewhere.
Yes.
Tell our new king we don't want him.
Yeah. 1,000%. Can you please share with everybody again where they can follow you, reach out to you, social medias, all the things?
So our website, letssaygay.com, we're pretty easy to find. We do have a resource tab for youth, and we have a safety escape key. If you're ever on the website, if you hit F2 twice, it'll immediately take you to Google. Unfortunately, our only social media right now, it's super icky because it's meta, but we are on Instagram. We can't go on Twitter for obviously, X is now where the Nazis hang out, and like TikTok isn't legal anymore. I don't know. So we're left with Instagram, although I hear good things about Blue Sky. So keep an eye out for us if we open a Blue Sky. You can find us on Instagram at Let's Say Gay Lit Journal. It's very long, but usually by the time you get to Let's Say G, we pop up. And then you can always email us also at LSG Lit Journal. We are a staff of 3. It is me and my very devoted older sister and loving partner. So I will get your emails if you set up. Don't worry.
Awesome. And I will make sure all of that is in the notes for the episode.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to anyone who stuck out with my squeaky voice for like 50 minutes. Talk about Batman. I'm kind of a nerd, but I love all of you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Again, please leave comments for Stephanie or myself about this episode. You can also follow Queer in Here on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Queer in Here Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are loved. You are enough. Please lean on each other and ask for help when needed. See you next time.